Hi guys, I'd like to show you the new parts for the new Firespitter version. So the big new thing in this version is biplanes. I've made some new lift code, some new aerodynamics code, and you can find these on all of these biplanes, and also on the existing F-86 wings. Now this is a pretty accurate reproduction of a Sopwith camel. Complete with proper IVA views. So you have some nice instruments. Let's just fire it up and see how it flies. Now these wings, they provide quite a lot of lift to make the takeoff speed pretty realistic. It's still just a tad faster than an actual Sopwith camel, but it takes off at maybe half the speed you'd expect from a regular KSP plane. So here we have all kinds of nice new instruments, vertical speed indicators, with a very narrow range that fits the actual plane we're flying. Airspeed in knots and meters per second, just because knots can be confusing. And some useless gizmos like maintenance check stuff. Little fuel meter over here, and of course the throttle, which works just like a regular throttle you can drag on it with your mouse. So you'll see there are custom wheels, and in fact this little rear wheel here is well, it's not a wheel, it's a skid. So that's a good thing because it allows you to stop without having to use brakes on your front wheels, which tends to tip people over, or like do a nosedive. So we can probably get a pretty decent landing quite fast here. Maybe I should apply some flaps. No, it's okay. So it's slowing down quite quickly, just by itself, because this thing is dragging on the ground. But it also steers. So you can see it steers a bit, which is helpful. Now, all of these wings are using the tweakable settings, so you'll be able to set these things both in the hangar and when you're flying. So by default, a wing will only respond to roll. So you see it has a 1 roll response. That means it does its full impact in the roll direction. I mean, I could set it to 2. It would do even more, but 1 is like what it was designed with. The rudder will have a yaw response set by default, and the ailerons will by default only be set with a pitch response. This gets rid of a couple of problems that I have with wings freaking out a bit when the wings come too close to the center of mass when you burn fuel. So these will always respond the same way. Now, of course, if you wanted to put this wing up top as a rudder, you could do that. You just change the yaw response as needed. Now, the interesting thing about this setup is you can actually test this while you're in the hangar. So if we turn the little lift arrow on here, if you go to the action group, it starts responding to key inputs. So if I press the roll button, all of these ailerons start moving and the lift arrow updates. If I press W or S for pitch, they actually update as well, and the yaw. So it's interesting because you can actually see what effect this has on the position of your center of lift. As I said, you can tweak all of these settings here. You can even set up a flap response. So if I think that maybe it's a bit difficult to land this thing, I could add some inverse flap like this. And this applies to both wings. And now if I were to use the flap action groups, like so, I could just do extend flap, retract flap, extend and retract. And now I can test these settings with the F button. This will give the full flap response. I mean, the default retract and extend are not the full response. It's just like a fifth or something. So if we try this one out, we'll see that it might help us a bit in taking off and landing. I just press the 1 button for the action key and see there's a bit of flap. If I set it negative, you could get downwards flap, which is probably what you want if you want to do a shorter takeoff. But in this case, I want to do a shorter landing. So it'll force you down a bit when you're landing, so you don't get straight back up into the air. There we go. Nice landing. And even with this narrow wheelbase, we can do a safe landing. Now, all of these parts also have some alternate textures. So if I were to right click this thing, do next texture, suddenly we have a German texture on here, or just a blank red texture. So this of course has been used to create a German triplane with all nice accurate textures, and even small features like using the tail skid for wing protection here. So if you were to hit the wing, the actual Fokker DR1 has some protective wooden things here. So if the wing hits the ground, it might survive. This works very well in KSP as well. Especially since this little section of the wing here is actually a separate little thing and tends to fall off quite often for me. I've also updated the F86 wings because they have a complex thing with leading edges and everything. So you might see some changes to craft built with these wings. If that's a problem, I've also included the legacy wings as a zip file in the Aero parts folder. So this, if you don't know, has automatically deploying leading edges. So if you're at low speed or a high angle of attack, these leading edges come out and they give extra area to the wing, so it provides more lift and a bit more drag. And it flies quite nicely. There's also a limiter in place that makes sure you don't get too much of a roll response when you're going very fast, because when you're going very fast, any aerodynamic surface has more impact, so you would just spin very, very fast, which is no good. I think I've gotten it to a good level. Let's see. I think that's about it. Those are the major changes for the new version. So I hope you'll have fun with it. Bye.